We as a people can be a divided bunch, but there's one thing we can all agree on. These guys, they kind of suck. I probably don't have to tell you what Ticketmaster is, because you likely already know it from this sentence. Ticketmaster has been seen as the bane of any concert goer's life. This has been the case for years now, but with recent debacle surrounding several high-profile events, the sights are on them like never before. But how did something that reeks of garbage get into the dumpster to begin with? And what can be done to get it cleaned, shaved, and broken up by antitrust regulation? Let's explore all that and more. First, we gotta start in the 1970s. Back then, the main provider for live event tickets was Ticketron, which itself was a ticketing subsidiary of a larger supercomputer firm. Thanks to some Arizona State grads, Ticketmaster came onto the scene in 1976, but it really started to blossom in the early 80s under CEO Fred Rosen. And the key to his success was the service fee. Here's the thing, Ticketron had fees for both ticket buyers and venues, plus it only stocked a portion of a given event's tickets. The rest would be available from the venue directly. Ticketmaster's ace in the sleeve was that it would let the venues share in the money made from fees. In exchange, the venue would work solely with Ticketmaster, as well as allow Ticketmaster to sell all of an event's tickets. And in order to recoup the money given to venues, Ticketmaster would just charge customers more with fees. This strategy was incredibly successful, and in due time, promoters were also offered the same deal. Ticketmaster would spend its continued existence building relationships with promoters and venues, as well as gobbling up competitors, 7 of them between 1985 and 1991. Including Ticketron. Its biggest acquisition, though, was in 2009 when they began the process of merging with Live Nation, which operates many of the US's biggest venues and manages several big artists. Now you may be wondering, when put together, Ticketmaster, Live Nation, and Live Nation's artist management company Frontline would control about 70% of the live entertainment industry. Surely this large of a market share would constitute concerns over them being a monopoly. If that's you, congrats, you have at least one thing in common with the US government. And to its credit, the US government did do something in response to this merger. Aside from approving it, the Justice Department gave them a nice little 10-year provisionary period so that the two companies couldn't figuratively strangle venues who didn't play by their rules. Said period was extended by 5 years in 2020 because the two companies did that. So there you go. When you buy a ticket to a concert, there's a very good chance that it's through Ticketmaster for a Live Nation venue. But what are we paying for when we pay for a concert ticket? I'd like to take a second and break that down. The first part was a big surprise to me personally. Most of the money goes to the artist. And it's not a slim majority. The historical average is 85% of a ticket sale. Now, when I say it goes to the artist, I don't mean just the artist. It's everything and everyone involved in the production. Performers, musicians, engineers, crew. Then there's transportation, housing, gas, and other assorted costs. So the artist gets the biggest slice of the pie, but there's also the venue, right? The venue's gotta make money, and they get some too from the ticket sale. Same for the promoter as well. But that's where we get fees, service fees, convenience fees, order processing fees, facilities fees. By the time you hit the checkout screen, you might see a ticket's original value balloon up by 20%, 40%, or even, knowing math was a bad idea. It's kind of like movie theaters, you know? The money you pay for the ticket goes to the film studio, but then you've got expensive refreshments and all the other ways that the theater itself makes money. How else can they afford those Nicole Kidman ads? I'd like to now look at 3 specific cases of where concert ticketing has gone very wrong. The first involves an instance when a band's tickets could not evenly flow. In May 1994, Pearl Jam planned to tour. The band wanted this tour to be affordable, with ticket prices sitting at $20. Ticketmaster would not let them do this, requiring them to charge a higher price and allow for typical service fees. With moral support from the DOJ, who were looking to start an investigation into Ticketmaster, the band went and testified before Congress that same year. And in 1995, the band decided to perform at venues without relationships to Ticketmaster. What happened next was kinda awe-inspiring, but in the worst way possible. For the next few months, the entire live music industry basically turned against Pearl Jam. Ticketmaster allegedly pulled every possible favor they could with venues and lawyers to essentially make an example out of Pearl Jam. The band had to turn to random venues off the beaten path like ski resorts and county fairs. They also had to deal with Ticketmaster allegedly planting news stories that undermined their efforts. The tour was mired in bad luck, and it was ultimately canceled after Eddie Vedder got a mysterious stomach bug mid-concert. Once the dust settled, Pearl Jam was back under Ticketmaster's thumb, and the DOJ ended their investigation. They lie and say they're in love with him. Can't find a better ticketing service. Now, I don't usually do this, but I would like to read you the full statement by the DOJ following this investigation's end. This is going to take a while, but understanding every piece of this will reveal some surprising truths about Ticketmaster's business. Here we go. The Department of Justice announced today that it has informed Ticketmaster Holdings Group Incorporated that it is closing its antitrust investigation into that firm's practices. The department will continue to monitor competitive developments in the ticketing industry. That's it. Yeah, seriously, that's it. 2 sentences. That was their response. Like I said, awe-inspiring, but in the worst way possible. Now we jump ahead to present day, where there's been 2 big stories surrounding concert tickets. First, Bruce Springsteen, the boss, the man, the guy. Him and his E Street Band are out on the road right now, and you can see them live for the measly price of Springsteen tickets this time around could get pretty expensive, and people were not happy about it, especially considering Bruce's everyman demeanor and the working class life he portrays in his songs. Now, the operative word there was could, because the Springsteen discourse also highlights a new way Ticketmaster ekes money out of us: dynamic pricing. They looked at how airlines charge more during peak times of service and did that for concerts. Now, the special wrinkle in dynamic pricing is that the artist opts into it. It's their decision. And this is where I find myself pulled in 3 different directions. First off, I believe that artists should charge what they are worth. If an artist believes their work is worth a certain price, then I can either agree or disagree with my wallet, but I'm not going to tell them not to do that. But when I say artists deserve to charge what they're worth, I usually have in mind middle-class artists or musicians looking to make a decent living. I'm not thinking about multi-millionaire pop and rock stars. They're fine. Springsteen probably does not need the money at this point. But then, the little economist on my shoulder is like, is it a matter of need at this point? Springsteen and E Street Band concerts have an incredible reputation, and as Bruce has said in interviews during this fiasco, he's old. They're old. As sad as it is to say, the opportunity to see them live might not be available for much longer. Is a concert in 2023 for Springsteen and the E Street Band worth paying an exorbitant amount of money for? For some people, yeah. I'm not even super familiar with Springsteen's full catalog, and there's still a part of me that would pay pretty good money to see them live. I think it's a decision that comes down to us as individuals, but this is starting to get into larger economic and even philosophical ideas, so before I continue on that thread, let's tackle one more case. Are you ready for it? No! There's this artist named Taylor Swift. You might have heard of her. She announced last year that she would be going on tour for the first time since 2018, and people were pretty excited for this. Let me lay out the timeline. A general sale for the Eras Tour was scheduled for November 18th, 2022, but between November 1st and 9th, fans could sign up for the Verified Fan Program, which would give them access to a pre-sale on the 15th. The 15th came, and all hell broke loose. Millions of fans showed up for the pre-sale, Ticketmaster's website crashed. By the end, 2 million tickets were sold, but Ticketmaster postponed the rest of the pre-sale and canceled the general sale. Just to make that clear, because I had to remind myself of it, there has not been a general sale for Taylor Swift's next tour. It has not happened. This turn of events put Ticketmaster on the dartboard of every Taylor Swift fan, and it even led to a hearing in Congress to examine their grip on the market. The only thing that rivaled the hate for Ticketmaster during this hearing was the amount of Taylor Swift lyric references.
Ticketmaster ought to look in the mirror and say, I'm the problem. It's me.
You can't have too much consolidation, something that unfortunately for this country as a ode to Taylor Swift, I will say, we know all too well.
I think it's a nightmare dressed like a daydream. I don't think we ought to go there. Karma's a relaxing thought. Aren't you envious that for you it's not? That's all I've got to say.
And that gets us roughly to present day, where Ticketmaster has taken its place as enemy number one for music fans. All my homies hate Ticketmaster indeed. Hell, even as I was editing this video, there was another story that came out with regard to Ticketmaster being stinky. Robert Smith from The Cure was bashing them online because The Cure is touring this year and their tour was getting hit by these outrageous ticket fees. But this is where I want to bring Fred Rosen back into this conversation. He chimed in during an interview around the time of the hearing, and he said, "The public brought this all on itself. They helped create this situation where artists have to make all their money on tour. Artists and the market set the price, and you can't pay a Motel 6 price and stay at the Four Seasons." And look, I think blaming the public on this is too general, much like how blaming musicians for high concert tickets is also too general. But putting that aside, I hate how correct he is. And that leads into my still in development pilot series called Every Weakness of the Modern Music Industry Can Be Traced Back to the MP3 Getting Leaked in 1997, thus allowing Napster and other file sharing platforms to decimate the monetary value of recorded music, leading to an economy where touring is the only viable stream of income for musicians. I pitched this show to Netflix, but they said the title was too short. The problem of live music today has been developing for decades. It's a symptom of the devaluation of physical and digital music sales, plus the shift towards buying experiences rather than products. And these days there's inflation, global uncertainty, and to top it all off, artists trying to recoup costs from those years when everyone was collectively unable to tour. Lorde summarized this pretty well in a newsletter of hers. Let's start with 3 years worth of shows happening in one. Add global economic downturn, and then add the totally understandable wariness for concert goers around health risks. On the logistical side, there's things like immense crew shortages, extremely overbooked trucks and tour buses and venues, inflated flight and accommodation costs, ongoing general COVID costs, and truly mind-boggling freight costs. Ticket prices would have to increase to start accommodating even a little of this, but absolutely no one wants to charge their harried and extremely compassionate and flexible audience any more money. But speaking of money, there's a disconnect here, right? Even though it's an experience, live music is discussed in this conversation as a product. But it's not really a product, not like an album or a piece of merch or something that's physical and tangible. The actual product here is the ticket, the little piece of paper or QR code on your phone that says, yes, I am allowed to see the Wiggles live. But what if the ticket isn't Ticketmaster's actual product? Now, you might be saying, Mike, that's dumb, that's stupid, you're not invited to my birthday party anymore. But hear me out. We talk about how Ticketmaster is screwing over customers with fees, but maybe the ticket buyers are not Ticketmaster's actual customers. Its real customers are the venues and the promoters, which means the real product that Ticketmaster is offering is the service fee, which then means when Ticketmaster hits you with exorbitant fees, the process is working. I've been reading this book, Ticketmasters, for research on how Ticketmaster came to be, and it's kinda shocking how many of the complaints we leverage against them are answered with a simple yes. Alan Citron, founding president of Ticketmaster Online, once said, quote, "Part of the unspoken agreement, or maybe even spoken, was that we will be the face of ticketing. Buying a ticket is not a real enjoyable process. We'll make it as good as it can be, and we'll also take the bruises for people who don't like the process." And that's because, as the book's authors say, quote, "Ticketmaster's ultimate interest was in protecting its client base, which consisted of the buildings and promoters who contracted to use the system." For fans, for concert goers, Ticketmaster is supposed to suck. This is the way they enable venues and promoters to make more money. And it works because they know that we, as a collective, are gonna keep paying for it. Live Nation posted record profits in 2022, and all signs point to them earning even more this year. Now, a lot of people use this discussion, and specifically the Taylor Swift debacle, to say, well, if you don't want to pay through the roof to see a huge pop star, then you should go support your local venues and local performers. And on one hand, yes, it's good. That's good. Local music is good. Smaller shows are good, and they should be supported. But also, your local band didn't make Style. They didn't make Thunder Road. It's okay to want to see an artist whose music you love, and it's understandable to be bummed when you can't see them because of unaffordable tickets. Plus, I don't like to see smaller musicians being used as some gotcha to make someone feel more superior than others. Two things can be true at once. The reality is, who else is there to buy tickets from? It's either Ticketmaster or secondhand markets. Hey, what about secondhand markets?
I miss us.
Maybe I can help. That band you loved in college just got back together.
What?
Not everyone has a Ticket Oak, but everyone can use StubHub. What are you doing this weekend?
Yes, there are places like StubHub that offer resold secondhand tickets, and some of those companies like SeatGeek have even tried coming for Ticketmaster's throne by making exclusive contracts with venues as the primary ticket seller. I mean, those contracts don't last long, but still they exist. Oftentimes, secondhand markets are treated as an enemy of Ticketmaster, and sometimes their names are uttered in the same breath as Ticketmaster's #1 enemy. Now, let's be real here. Scalpers suck. They have existed for as long as event ticketing has existed, and they are another symptom of the erosion of music sales where bad actors can exploit the immense demand for live concerts. And you know what? In recent years, Ticketmaster has launched their own secondhand reselling marketplace to help combat scalpers. That's right, you can avoid paying insane prices to scalpers by paying insane prices to Ticketmaster. Yeah, this guy is shooting me a bunch, but he told me this other guy would shoot me with 2 guns, so this has gotta be a good deal. That's also not even touching on the reports that Ticketmaster allegedly doesn't even put all its tickets on their own site and will sometimes save tickets specifically to be sold on secondhand markets to jack up the prices even further. But I think the point has been made. Ticketmaster has immense control over live ticketing in the US, and they can really do whatever they want to funnel more money to their partners because they know someone will pay for it. So, what can be done? Unfortunately, a problem of this size and stature cannot be fully solved by us normal folk. Some fans have tried going the legal route with mixed results. A recent lawsuit was thrown out because the users had signed away their right to sue by accepting the terms of service. There's also that lawsuit by Taylor Swift fans that made headlines, but that met the same fate. Still, there are some actions that can be taken by the industry or enforced by our government. The first one would have to be done by Congress. Break Ticketmaster and Live Nation up. Break up their giant hold on the live event industry. Now, while this would be a major step forward, it would not be the only step needed. Slice Live Nation off, and Ticketmaster on its own is still the world's largest ticket seller. Oh no, it's a hungry shark with a machete. Oh, phew, we're saved. There would need to be other rules and practices in place to ensure a better ticketing system. Ticket vendors could adopt all-in ticket pricing. Basically, when you go to buy a ticket, you get to see the ticket's face value and all of the associated costs right up front. This one is actually supported by Ticketmaster, though I imagine they're doing it because the alternative is much worse to them. For resale tickets, a cap on their max price would be great. Some have also said tickets sold through Ticketmaster should only be resold through their own reselling marketplace, but that one is trickier since it would be putting more power into Ticketmaster's hands. Also, and this is a pipe dream, this is not going to happen anytime soon, this is just me doing some wishful thinking, I would love to see recorded music become a viable source of income for musicians again. Or even just other revenue streams being made available and viable for musicians that are on the same level as touring. Anything that takes away the power from touring being the only real way a musician can make money is good in my book. But again, that's gonna take time. We must understand though, that even if the situation around ticket prices is made better, we will still live in a world where not every person who wants to see their favorite artist can. When the Taylor storm happened, Ticketmaster said they expected 1.5 million fans for the pre-sale. And how many did we get on our site? 14 million.
What?
Even if Ticketmaster was prepared to handle that much traffic, not all of those fans would be able to get tickets. That's unfortunate, but that's also okay. The outcome of these reforms isn't everyone gets to go to every show they want. It's a world where ticket prices don't cost a body part to buy, and the process to get them doesn't make you want to chop a body part off. And I hope that world comes to exist sooner rather than later.